Welcome back to Growth Catalyst. Sir. Welcome back. In this session, we're going to look at how to build productive habits, the science of habit formation. Have you ever started building a habit? Have you ever started on the path of breaking some old bad habits, only to see all of those efforts fade away in a few weeks or even days? Yes, we've all been there. Absolutely. I've been there. I'm sure you have been there at some time or the other. So, how do we break the cycle of not getting into the groove of forming the new productive habits? How do we get into the groove of breaking that old habit, bad habit that we want to desperately get away from? That is what we are going to see in this video. Let's jump right in. In this video, we will see what are the components of building that habit, what is the science behind those building blocks, and how you can build those productive habits. So what are habits? Habits are automatic behaviors. We don't even think about them. We perform these behaviors without much conscious thoughts. They get repeated, and the more they get repeated, the more they become absolutely without conscious kind of habits, without kind of conscious kind of behaviors over a period of time. We get up and we don't really think about it deeply. We go brush our teeth. It's a habit formed right from our childhood, habit behavior repeated over and over and over. And therefore, the habit has come to a point where as soon as you get up, not even thinking, just go and brush. If you want to form a new habit that you want to brush after, let's say, dinner, then you need to consciously think about it because that is not, if that is not yet there as your clear behavior. So just to repeat, habits are repeated behaviors, repeated without much of conscious habit. So how do these form? What happens in the brain when these happen? What kind of environment they get formed? Let's see that. A lot of this memory structure is stored in a place in the brain called basal ganglia, which stores all of these behaviors. And the more you repeat, the more stronger the storage is, the more clearer the storage is, the more easy it is to recall. And no conscious thought is required, the stronger it is. That is why some of the habits, good or bad, we're not talking about the good or bad of the habit. As soon as environment triggers, the habit triggers. For example, a lot of people have this bad habit of smoking immediately after their meals, lunch. So as soon as they finish their lunch, the tendency is to go for a smoke. Because they have done that many times, the habit gets triggered as soon as they finish their meal. It's a bad habit, but the habit gets triggered almost without any thinking. They reach for their cigarettes because it has been formed as a habit, and it requires a very conscious effort to break the cycle, break the habit. So how do these habits get formed? What happens in the cycle of forming the habit? Let's see that now. The entire habit formation can be explained using these three steps. Cue, what triggers the habit; routine, what you do, which is the core of what we call as habit, the behavior; reward, how you feel the moment you perform that behavior, which is the habit. For example, the cue is that you are stressed, you are tired, you want to get rid of the stress, and that is the cue. Now that triggers the habit, the behavior called eating junk food. So you have to reach out, you have to eat. It could be a chocolate, it could be chips, it could be uh, having street food. Whatever is the behavior, the stress, which is a cue, triggers a craving for this behavior, which is eating something. Open the fridge, eat something. Go out in the street, eat something. That behavior gets triggered because of the cue, which is a stress. And then as soon as you eat, which is a behavior, the habit, you feel happy about it, satisfied about it, which is the reward. So the cue, which is the stress, triggers the behavior, which is eating junk food, and the reward, which is feeling happy about it. Somewhere you've taken care of that stress, or you feel so, and therefore the loop gets completed. What happens because of the loop is that every time you feel stress, whether it is stress at home, whether it is actual stress, imagined stress, stress at office, you need a junk food to satisfy the craving. And without the junk food, you feel there is a gap. And only when you have that helping of that junk food, you will feel happy, you will feel rewarded, you will feel that you have taken control of the stress. It's a bad loop, but similar loops play out in case of every single, whether it's a good habit or bad habit. So there's a cue, there's a habit, which is the routine, and there is a reward, which happens how you feel in terms of having done that particular habit. Two things happen in the brain which reinforces the whole cycle of cue behavior, which is the routine and the reward. So cue, routine, reward gets strengthened by what is called as a neuroplasticity of brain. Brain reorganizes itself basis this particular loop. Okay, there is a cue. Every time there is a cue, there is a particular behavior. And every time there is a particular behavior, there is a particular reward. And the brain reorganizes itself around this. And it is capable of reorganizing itself around many of such routines. Good or bad, doesn't really matter. But once it reorganizes itself, that becomes a chunk of information which is available to you. And every time there is a cue, there is a particular routine happens. And whenever you indulge in a particular habit, the brain also releases what is called as dopamines, which is a feel-good neurotransmitter. You feel good because the brain recognizes you are indulging in the habit without even thinking, and it releases dopamines, and you feel good about it. It completes the cycle. So there's a cue, there's a routine, there's a reward, and because of that reward, there is a dopamine, which ensures that you feel happy about having indulged in the habit. It's important to recognize that your brain also is a great opponent when it comes to forming new habits. It wants to be in that comfort zone. It prioritizes old routines, old habits, old loops over anything new because it has served your purpose till now, and therefore it wants to be there in that zone. So there is a resistance released by the brain every time you are trying something new, some new routine. That is why you feel that discomfort when you are trying to form a new habit or trying to get away from the old bad habits. So it resists that new habit, and that is why people find it very hard to quit smoking, very hard to start new healthy diets because the brain is not comfortable. The brain is wanting to go back to the old habits, the old dopamine release transmitting situations where it has felt happy, it has felt comfortable. It doesn't want to move away from the comfort zone. That is the resistance, that is the challenge that all of us face when we want to break the old habit or form new good habits. Whichever it is, the brain is a great opponent for us. It resists the change. So what should we do? We should start small. There is a cue, form the cue. There should be a trigger in the environment which would get us to that routine, and it should be very small so that the resistance from our brain is also very small and we can easily overcome the resistance. So the idea, the power is in starting very small. So if you want to, for example, get into healthy ways of doing things, want to get into fitness, don't get into a 2-hour gymming program right from day one if you have never exercised in your life. Maybe you need to start with 10 minutes, 15 minutes, get used to that routine, and then gradually increase the routine rather than getting into a gym membership with 2-hour programs right from day one. You may not feel comfortable, especially after the initial euphoria of getting a new habit years away, and your brain starts resisting the new habit. You can also look at habits in two different ways. One is what people call as a goal-based habit formation, and second is what people would call as identity-based habit formation. Let me explain. Goal-based habit formation is the simplest that we are all used to. For example, let's say I want to read 20 books this year. So that's a goal-based habit formation. So 20 books I want to read this year, or it could be that I want to lose 20 kg. It's 100 kg. I want to get into 80 kg zones, and 20 kg loss is the goal for the year. That's a good goal, either of this, and you want to get into it. You would adopt a routine, and you may want to go on. What happens in this whole process is that if you hit some challenges, the chances of giving up is very high because it's a goal. And suppose you want to lose 20 kg, you have fasted, you have gone into gym, you have done all the routines, you have hardly lost 5 kg after 3 months. Now, there are good chances that you may not continue. Or if you have not seen much of a progress, there is a good chance that you may stop moving towards that goal. If you have not even read 2 books in, let's say, 4 months' time, and your goal is 20 books for the year, there is a good chance that you may give up the goal itself instead of doubling your efforts in the process. Why? Because it's the goal, it is the habit which is formed basis a goal. And when you are convinced that the goal is not going to be achieved, or you need to do lots of efforts going towards the goal, you may abandon the goal itself, and therefore you would abandon the habit also. The second one is identity-based habit formation, where instead of you telling yourself or taking the goal of losing 20 kg, if you say that I'm a healthy person, I'm a weight conscious person, and because I'm a healthy person, because I'm a health conscious person, because I'm a fitness conscious person, as part of that identity, as part of my self image, I want to lose 20 kg in the process. Then losing 20 kg is not the goal by itself. Losing 20 kg is part of the goal of overall identity of yourself. Now, the goal is not some goal post. The goal is way of life. Reading 20 books is a goal because you want to become knowledgeable in that subject. You want to become a person who is called as an expert in the subject. Because you are an expert in the subject, towards that you want to read 20 books per year, and hence that goal is a part and parcel of the process of becoming the expert. So when you have and carry identity based goals rather than just goal based habits, identity based habits are far superior because it also inculcates the goal based habits as part and parcel of where you want to be, who you want to be. So the identity of you drives the goals, and hence habits which are formed as basis for identity are far stronger, far resilient than the habits which are formed just as part of a goal. So my suggestion would be simple. Identify yourself as a larger than life. Identify yourself as somebody who wants to become somebody and have goals as part of that, so that a habit formation towards the new identity is far easier and will move you faster, quicker, better, and more efficient. Another step that can be very, very useful is called stacking habit. It's linking the new good habit to old existing good habits. For example, suppose you want to reflect about the day, suppose you want to journal about the day. One good way of thinking about it is add this new habit of journaling to old existing habit of, say, having coffee. Suppose you're a person who loves coffee in the morning, who have brewed your coffee, keeping on the table. A good way to think about journaling is to add it to existing habit of having coffee in the morning, so that the new habit of journaling doesn't look like and feel like a chore. So you add this habit on top of what is an existing habit, so that these are stacked together and they become a powerful new system for you to implement. Next concept which will be useful to think about in terms of forming habits, building the building blocks of habit, is what is called as a linchpin habit. Linchpin habit is that habit which helps you to access the other habits which are not so accessible. For example, if you link the habit of exercising right off the brushing, then brushing is a linchpin habit. Is the first habit you stack the habit of exercising on top of brushing, but it leads to greater effect. Otherwise, you may not be wanting to exercise, but now you are linking exercising to brushing, it becomes a linchpin habit. For me, for example, waking up early is a linchpin habit. After that, I do several things because the morning is quieter. Then it helps me to reflect, helps me to plan the day, helps me to exercise, helps me to do a lot of things which may not be accessible for me that easily if I don't do the habit of waking up early. For a lot of people, waking up early also means journaling. Waking up early also means reflections. Waking up early also means planning, like it is for me. So it becomes a linchpin habit because it allows you to access so many other habits which are not easily accessible otherwise. So you may want to think about which habits which are already there, which can lend itself, if you stack on top of it the other habits, the not so accessible habits that you want to really form. So that's the power of linchpin habit. You want to think deeply about what you can and how you can use this really interesting phenomenon about habit formation. The other steps that are really, really useful in forming that habit in a very, very good fashion is setting realistic, clear goals. The SMART framework can be very, very handy. When you say specific goals, when you set very, very specific goals for yourself, which are in the ambit of your identity and not just the goals in terms of habit formation, it spectacularly helps you in terms of moving forward. Instead of, for example, saying that I want to exercise, if you say that I want to exercise for 10 minutes every day to start with for the first 10 days, and after that, I will look at increasing it to, let's say, 20 minutes. But in this 10 minutes every day, I want not to miss even a single day because this is going to help me to become that healthy, conscious, health conscious, fitness conscious person that I want to be. So when you frame your habit like that, when you frame your goals towards your habit like that, it helps you to form that habit on a consistent basis. The other thing that you may want to do in terms of habit formation is to remind yourself with visual clues. Also, to get an accountability partner. Both work greatly in terms of forming and ensuring that the habit gets formed. When you have reminders for yourself, when you see them every single day, it helps you. Some of the research says that 60-65% more habit formation is likely when you are reminded by visual reminders on the fridge, on the working table, on the door, wherever you see. If you put your reminders for yourself, then you will move towards that habit. You will move towards that goal. You will move towards the habit formation much faster, much better if you don't have those visual cues. Similarly, if you have accountability partner, for example, gymming is a great activity, great example where two people work as accountability partners for each other. So I call you and say, hey, did you go to the gym yesterday? And you call me and ask, okay, I went to gym today. What about you? Have you done your bit? When people cooperate with each other, when people become accountability partners for each other, when there is a person who's checking on your progress, the willingness to progress on that set goal and form that as a habit becomes much, much more likely. The last piece of building blocks in terms of building that habit formation would be positive reinforcement. When you consistently do the habit, maybe after 1 week of exercising for the first time, you want to treat yourself a small little treat, but treat yourself, celebrate that consistency of habit formation so that that also becomes a reward, a positive reinforcement for you to look forward to. Let's say every week, 6 days of gymming, 1 day off where you treat yourself. That becomes a very, very good positive reinforcement so that you stay on the habit. How do you deal with challenges? How do you deal with setbacks? How do you deal with breaks of this habit? This happens. You take a fitness goal, you want to become a fitter person, you identify yourself as a fit person, and you have set a goal towards that. You want to go do exercises every day. Couple of days, you become lazy, you have goofed off. It's okay. Don't kill yourself for that. It's okay. But come back when you have realize that you have not exercised for the past 2 days, come back quickly. It's okay. What has happened has happened. Can you start again today? So the ability to bounce back, the ability to not kill yourself, not beat yourself, especially over what has already happened and you cannot reverse it, is very, very important. Bouncing back is very, very important trait to stay and stick to the habit. The other one which helps is designing your environment so that the environment also gives you cues, pushes you towards that habit. For example, if you want to beat the habit of procrastination, having a messy desk is the last thing that you want to do. Having a clear desk, having visual cues, having an accountability partner, all of that will push you towards beating that procrastination or achieving whatever goal, whatever habit that you set out to achieve. Many times it's a good way to tell yourself that habits are long lasting, habits are foundation for the change in lifestyle, change in the life itself that you are seeking. And the great example from James Clear of 1% improvement per day leading to stupendous changes by the end of the year is a great way of telling yourself that every day, if you improve by just 1%, it compounds over a period of time. Compounding is an astonishing phenomenon, which is a gift to all of us. It works wonders not only in the financial field where you put money and it compounds over a period of time, you put effort, it also compounds over a period of time through what is called as habits. Remember that, remind yourself, and when you remind yourself that the effort that you are taking in forming this great habit, this good habit, whether it is waking up in the morning, whether it is giving up old habits, whether it is forming new habits in terms of fitness, reading books, or whatever that you want to get into as a new good habit, is foundational stone for your better life. When you repeat yourself, when you see that big picture every single day, all of that would help you propel you towards forming that habit without failing. One other thing that you might ask is how long does it take to form this habit? Can I form in 10 days? And can I form it in 7 days? And there is literature often quoted number of 21 days. Sometimes people quote 48 days as a number. Research typically says that there is no fixed number. And there are researchers, especially in the area of fitness, which show that some people form the habit in about 14 to 20 days. Typical number seems to be, the starting number seems to be 21 days, but it ranges as far as 265 days, almost very close to a year. It all depends on the complexity of the habit that you're trying to form. It also depends on, for example, if you're trying to break away from a habit, something like a smoking habit, it becomes even harder for you to stick to the new habit of not smoking. If you're a person who's used to a routine, which is, let's say, starting getting up around 9 in the morning and going about your work, and you want to now shift to a routine of getting up earlier in the morning, it can become difficult. So the complexity of the task, the resistance that you feel towards the task because you have never done something like that before, your own motivation to do that, and your environment. For example, if everybody in your house is sleeping till 9, it will be very difficult for you to wake up at 5. However, if everybody is anyway getting up at 5 and you are the only person who is sleeping till 9, it will be a lot easier for you to go back to that 5 o'clock in the morning because everybody else is in your house is doing that behavior anyway. So it all depends on the complexity. It all depends on what is the motivation that with which you are trying to form the new habit. What is your environment which is helping or not so helpful in terms of you forming this particular routine and that becoming a habit for you. All of this will decide in terms of how easy it is for you to stick to that habit. If you stick to that habit, new habit, 85% of your time, it's called new habit is formed already. And that is how typically people measure. And the harder it is, the more complex it is, the less motivation you have, the less environmental support you have, the more time it is going to take up for the new habit to form. That is why a lot of people also give up in the process of forming new habit because it is taking too long, it is taking too much of an effort from that point of view. So just to summarize, we have seen the signs of forming habits, the building blocks of forming that new routine, which becomes a habit. We saw that the science of forming habit in terms of cue, routine, and the reward and the cycle. And how do we use some of the scientific facts about forming this in terms of starting small, in terms of starting committing little time to start with, in terms of getting a accountability partner, in terms of getting visual cues for you, all of this, how they would really help you. We also saw the brain's resistance is a key reason why it is becoming very difficult to form new habits. But the brain, which is capable of sending the dopamine, which is a feel good transmitters after every reward is enjoyed by you, you can use that habit itself, that formation of brain itself in terms of forming new habits by cue and the routine and designing reward so that every time you do that routine and that becomes habit, you reward yourself unfailingly so that the brain recognizes, oh, I love this reward and therefore I want to get into this routine. So enjoy the science of forming new habits. Ensure that the habit that you want to form is not just goal based, but it is foundational enough, founded on a larger identity based goal that you are taking for yourself. So don't just be a person who wants to lose the 20 kg, be a person who is wanting to be healthy, wanting to be fit. Don't be a person who wants to read 20 books a year. Be the person who wants to become an expert, and the 20 books a year becomes a route towards getting that expertise. So when you identify yourself as a larger than life or as a different person than what you are, as a better person compared to what you are today, that better person tomorrow is a driving force behind many of the foundational habits, new habits getting formed, old habits getting completely destroyed, and the new habits coming in the place of those old habits. So make an identity change, become a better person, do 1% change every single day so that at the end of the year, you are a phenomenally new, better person and you can go and do whatever you want, whatever you set out your eyes to achieve. Wishing you all the very best in transforming yourself, signing off, and see you in our next episode.